We are live. Welcome to the Sports Porch. Welcome to the Sports Porch. And if you're listening to us on American Busker iHeartRadio, thank you very much. iHeartRadio has 150 million users, 2,000 devices, 260 platforms. And please remember, theporchislive.com, theporchislive.com.
Theporchislive.com.
That's where you can find our website and subscribe to our podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Well, boys, the championship games have come and gone. Kind of went the way we thought it would go, but didn't quite go the way we thought it would go. But listen, right now, let's do. Steve was talking about this before the show.
Okay.
So let's talk about this from the standpoint of the Steelers. Because that's what everybody on the original Sports Porch,
right?
We're a black and gold show,
right?
Let's talk Steelers. So Steve had a funny question. Who are the Steelers more like, the Chiefs or the Eagles?
And the answer to that was neither.
Right.
The Steelers don't have a veteran. They don't have a veteran quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's no way their offense is anywhere near the caliber of the Chiefs. Their defense is probably better than the Chiefs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they're nowhere near the youth and immense firepower that the Eagles bring on their offensive side. Mm-hmm. And their defense is probably similar to the Eagles, except the Eagles did the right thing, and they actually drafted their studs in the cornerback position. Or went out and got guys.
Well,
for the
Slay was wasn't Bradbury?
The corners were free agent signings.
Yeah, free agent signings.
Well,
so they
one
went
was
out
a
and
trade. Slay was a trade,
right?
And then Bradbury was a free agent.
And that's where they put their money. They put their money there on the defensive line.
Okay, so we've established that they're like neither team. So let's think about it from this perspective. Okay, which team would you rather them be like? And of those two teams, how do you think they get there?
Well, to be honest, I actually think the Steelers, if they're more similar to one, they're probably more similar to the Eagles.
Right, I'd agree.
Because the Eagles believe in pounding the ball, so they run the ball more than anybody pretty much. And, I mean, the Steelers defense, they're a little weak at the corner spot and maybe some at the linebacker spot, but their philosophy is to win in the trenches,
Right.
So I think they're pretty similar, and they both have a young quarterback who has mobility. So I think they're more similar to the Eagles, and that's a good thing, I think.
But what do the Steelers have to do to become? Because see, I disagree with you. Where I disagree with you is the Eagles like to throw the ball to set up the run. They throw the ball early, and then when they get a lead, they run the ball, and that's how they control the game.
I don't know. I think the Eagles can do either. I think they can run the ball to set up the pass, or they can pass the ball to set up the run.
Yeah.
See, I think the Steelers strictly are let's run the ball to set up the pass. But the thing that the Eagles do that the Steelers don't do is they throw it deep, and they have deep threats who can do that. So in order for the Steelers to become more like the Eagles, then Pickens and Pickett would have to become that deep threat like Devonta Smith is with Jalen Hurts. And that's really the only way that it works. I mean, they don't really have a second receiver like A.J. Brown, so they might even have to go out and get somebody like A.J. Brown if they wanted to be more like the Eagles sooner, unless they think – I can't even say it out loud without laughing. Deontay Johnson is that guy.
Right.
And we know he's not.
Yeah,
we know he's not.
Right.
I mean, he's not a big body like A.J. Brown is. And I don't know. I think in a lot of ways Najee could be like Sanders, but I don't know. They seem to have like 2 or 3 running backs who can run the ball. And the Steelers kind of want to be that way, but it's super light. Yeah. And let's face it, the Steelers have no offensive line. So, I mean, they would literally have to hit the jackpot in this draft like the Steelers did in 1974 and draft three offensive guys who would be starting this year for the next 4 years.
And this is where I was going with this. Where I was really going with this is what CD is saying here. They're more like the Eagles, but need Canada to rethink the approach. Actually, they need Canada to be gone.
Yeah, okay? They would have to replace him. Yeah,
and let's just move right into that right now. The Cowboys today fired Kellen Moore. Okay, they fired a guy who basically, I don't know, what was the Cowboys' offense ranked?
It was probably top 5.
Yeah, I would say it was top 5.
Yeah,
it was number 1 when it was clicking.
Right, right.
I mean, okay, nobody can stop it.
Yeah, and so there's all kinds of questions about that. You know, you fired a guy who obviously the offense was clicking. Right. So why did you fire him? Because Troy Pollard got a high ankle sprain? I mean, what's the reason? This is starting to become more and more, I think, of almost a game of chicken between, I don't want to say it, but Mike Tomlin and the Steelers organization and the media and us, the fans. Okay, because I'd love to take a poll for this.
Well, I mean, let's face it, it's about the owner. And when the owner says he's staying, guess what? The owner is the only one that really matters. Right. I mean, I agree with you that everybody who is a Steelers fan and most of the media are basically saying, look, this isn't working. Like, you have to replace him. Like, they're not even going to the level of Tomlin. They're just saying, just replace the offensive coordinator. But clearly Tomlin doesn't want him to go, and the owner is backing the head coach. So, I mean, the conversation itself is basically over. There's no conversation to be had about it. Right. We can continue to bring out points, but they're all going on deaf ears at this point.
Right.
Right.
Well, I unfortunately, I think, and that's kind of what CD was saying, McCarthy versus Moore.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Their head coach wanted him gone.
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe they just didn't like each other, or, you know, who knows?
Well, I mean, the Dallas could be in trouble because if Dan Quinn goes and their defense, you know, is under a new coordinator next year.
But he said he was staying.
I heard a lot today.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I heard a lot today that McCarthy might want to call the plays himself.
Yeah.
But they were also laughing about that because he's a horrible game manager.
He's not good.
So imagine being bad with timeouts and clock management, and you have to call the next play.
Yeah. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, and you're right, Steve, that you know, it's like we're going to have to suffer through this.
We will.
So Matt Canada, if you're watching or listening, you got a lot of homework to do. You know, so you want to go into a season, you want to be positive about something. So you go into the off season, and the only thing I think you can really hope for is that this guy says, okay, I gotta do a lot of studying. I gotta make this offense different. I gotta catch up to the NFL. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that we're talking about he's got to catch up to the NFL game.
Well, the thing that's ridiculous is, in my mind, I mean, look, there are some folks in the league that are true geniuses that really design some incredible plays, but the reality is, I mean, most of it's already out there. All you have to do is, you know, analyze the plays and the formations that the top teams in the league are running and replicate it. You know, it's not that hard.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a copycat league in that sense.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, like, Canada either thinks he's smarter than everybody else or knows how to run a jet sweep better than everybody else, because that's what he keeps coming back to, right? But the thing is, not even Shanahan was ready to play a game without a quarterback who can throw a ball. And that guy's an offensive genius.
Yeah. And you want to know what? And we're going to get to that. DG says, take the poll, but you know the answer. Yes, of course I know the answer. Canada needs to go. We'll be mediocre at best. And CD, I think he nailed it about Kellen Moore. He was talking smack about Greenfield and the Turnpike.
Hey, get him out of there.
McCarthy's from Greenfield. Anyway, so
How
you
dare
know,
he talk smack about the turnpike, the most expensive road in America.
absolutely,
We love it.
I love the turnpike. I do. I
Yeah,
think
who
it's
doesn't?
great.
Who
It's
doesn't
awesome.
mind that $30 for 5
Right.
miles?
I don't even
Yeah.
notice it. I don't know. I'm too
Yeah.
busy eating.
That's the whole magic trick of the whole thing. You never know what you're paying.
That's
but
right.
That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Poof! Oh my God, I'm broke. What happened? Oh, that's
Oh, there
right.
was
I went to
every-
Philadelphia.
Every other month up, they took out another 70.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm too busy eating candy corn on
I
the
see.
turnpike.
Oh,
Um,
that's too bad.
Okay, so you know we'll move this conversation. We got Super Bowl stuff. Let's talk about the championship games. Okay.
Do we really have to talk about the NFC Championship game though?
Yeah, absolutely. We
It
do.
was so terrible.
We've got and that's what I'm going to say. I was completely let down because, and I think a lot of people were,
Sure.
because Brock Purdy got hurt. Now there was a part of me that was thinking like, we were all thinking this. Did he did he cave under the pressure
He
here?
didn't look like he wanted to come back in.
Right.
Well,
Right.
they said if it was a
Yeah.
nerve injury,
Right.
and we have a doctor in the house, so we could ask the doctor.
I actually watched the video on this on what happened.
But they
Yeah,
said
yeah.
if it hits him in the nerve, like literally, he can't squeeze his hand,
Right.
and like even if he does, he can't
Yeah.
feel anything.
Right.
It's pretty hard to throw a ball
Yeah.
when you can't feel
Yeah.
anything.
And I think that was the biggest problem, is that it wasn't the kind of injury that you usually see that leads you to. It wasn't like a Pat Mahomes injury,
Yeah.
where it's like
Mhm.
there is no way that. Now, of course, he's
Right.
otherworldly, but where you're like, oh, he's out. This was so. What I did is I went online and I found a doctor's YouTube video,
Mhm.
and he literally broke down the elbow
Mhm.
and the ligaments and the nerve, and he
Mhm.
showed the reasons why. And I understand now
Mm-hmm.
more that that's exactly right. I mean, on the sidelines, you could tell he was more upset than
Yeah.
anything
Mhm.
because he literally couldn't even grip the ball.
Yeah.
That was the problem. And then when they had to bring him back in. So,
Well, Mahomes couldn't grip the
But-
ball in a couple
right.
plays too.
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, so a lot of people will say, well, and look, obviously, if Brock Purdy played the whole game, it would have been a closer game.
It
Yeah,
would have been a different. game
There's
for
no
sure.
there's no doubt about
I don't know
that.
that it would have been closer, honestly.
But I would say this.
It would have been closer if he would have thrown the challenge flag.
Here's the bottom
Yeah,
line. Here's the
that's what
bottom
I'm talking
line.
about, yeah.
Shanahan was exposed as a fraud.
here comes the Philly.
There we go.
Here's the Philly.
Everybody
Well,
be
here's-
You
quiet.
can't say that.
No,
he had to
I-
put Josh
I
Johnson in.
No.
And Steve was still
But-
saying they got a
but
chance
why?
with that defense.
But
They scored a
why?
touchdown.
Well, let me ask you this. Why did this happen? This happened because, okay, you want to call Nick Bosa the best defensive player in the league? Fine. He had 18 and a half sacks. Hassan Reddick had 16. Okay. Same player. One of the top defensive players in the league. What did they do? They thought that they could block him one-on-one with a backup tight end. And you know what?
Yeah.
That got his quarterback hurt.
That's
Yeah,
true.
no, you're right about
That
okay.
that is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is
That is
bad.
true.
That is bad coaching.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
the other thing that was really bad was the fact that he didn't challenge the Devontae Smith missed catch.
Now, see
Well, I
that
agree with that.
yeah, but that one I'm going to give him a little bit more of a pass on, only because when you came back after the commercial, that was when the announcers were like, "Hey, wait a minute, we took another look at this." It wasn't that obvious.
No, it definitely wasn't obvious. But what was obvious was the way Devonta Smith got up and
Right.
said,
Yes.
"Let's run a
Yeah.
play."
Right,
They did that signal where it's
Right,
like,
right.
"Let's run a play,"
Right.
because he wasn't sure he caught it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's run a play. Let's run a play. To
Right.
me, as a head coach, if I'm seeing
Yeah.
the receiver get up and
Right.
saying, "Let's run a play," instead of getting up and being like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Right,
let's
right,
go,"
right,
you
right.
know.
Yeah.
Right.
That would have raised some
Right.
doubt in my mind, and I don't think he was paying attention. And
Yeah.
on top of that, dude, it was fourth down.
Right.
If he doesn't
So-
catch it, they get the ball way back at the
Right.
45 or something
Right,
like
right.
that. So it had a double thing.
Yeah.
There were two things there. And by the way, I don't think he challenged anything the whole game, so
No.
he didn't use any of
Right.
his challenge.
And the
Yeah,
other thing
right.
too was like, and look, I don't know what they have access to, but every team has a system. You're supposed to have guys up in the booth who are looking at the replays and signaling down to the head coach to throw the red flag.
Right.
Whatever it was that they did. Now, granted, give maybe Devontae Smith some credit for getting everybody to run up and run a play fast. But
True.
the bottom line is they all had to run down like 40 yards down the field. There was time to look at it, and they just didn't do it quick enough.
Well, you know who's not
You know?
going to make that mistake? Andy Reid. He loves to throw the down.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. He does. But, and to me, the bottom line was, and the only part of this game that actually kind of frustrated me was, the 49ers quit. They quit in the second half, man. They absolutely quit. And I'll tell you what, crazy as it sounds, we were at the only other game I can remember that we were down to a running back, Brian Mitchell, coming in to play quarterback.
Oh, they quit.
And what one thing I can tell you is, look, I know Christian McCaffrey is not a quarterback. I do know he's thrown 2 touchdown passes though in the league. Okay, so he's got some ability.
No.
Like the fact that they were running play after running play in the fourth quarter with like 14 minutes left and they're down by 3 scores, that was just embarrassing. I thought that was shameful.
No offense.
Shameful.
It was. It was horrible.
I think you're wrong on this. Where I think they blew it was, why not have a third freaking quarterback on the roster? Like, I don't understand that. Like, if you have Purdy and then you have Jack Johnson behind him.
Josh.
Whoever it is.
Everybody knows
Nobody
his name
knows
is Josh
him.
Johnson.
Why not
He
have
played
at
for the
least a
Redskins.
third? Why not have at least a third quarterback?
He played
right?
he played for the Redskins a couple years back when they lost.
I
all
think
their-
where they
Alex
blew it
Smith
was they
went
thought
down,
Garoppolo was going to be back for the Super Bowl, and they were
Right.
just going to bring him back
Yeah.
for the Super Bowl.
And that's the thing. Is
And that's
a
the
good
problem.
point.
and
That's
that's
a
the
good
thing
point.
too. Is there was
Or
a
at least
lot.
have them there as an emergency, even if
Yeah.
Garoppolo could have kind of
Right.
gone.
There was
like,
a lot. There was a
Put him
lot
in
of.
there as the third quarterback.
See, actually,
emergency
there was a lot of talk that he could have been ready to play this week.
Yeah.
I think they didn't want him dressed in case Brock Purdy had a bad start to the game,
Could be.
and that I think ended up hurting him.
Could be.
You
Well,
know?
not having him there.
I think that was the big mistake. The
Yeah.
fact that they quit, dude, I get it. You have a quarterback who can't throw the ball, and
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
put him in there just so he can take the snap.
Yeah.
Because clearly McCaffrey didn't know the plays. I mean, dude, the guy's only been with the team for
Yeah,
9
I guess so.
games.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have been with that team for a longer period of time, I would
Yeah.
agree with you. Maybe he could have done something different.
Well, don't you even think him running a wildcat? 3 runs.
they still
and a
know.
pass?
They still,
No,
they
that
still
game
know
was
he's
over.
going to run the ball.
Yeah.
Look.
At that point, dude, they were down by, 3 scores?
Mhm.
And they had the ball, and all they did was run it. They
Yeah.
they clearly couldn't throw the ball.
Yeah. Well, and
I mean,
that's
there's just no way.
That's the thing. I mean, as soon as Josh Johnson went in, that game was over. Okay. And you could actually tell that the Eagles kind of held back on offense, not on defense, but on offense.
Well, yeah.
They literally, because I think their thought process was the defense is still going to get after it because you never know. It's the NFL. You never
Right.
know. The defense still needs to play. As an offense, we can play a more dialed back
Yeah,
playbook.
they just wanted to run the clock.
we
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to.
it.
We don't
Run
want to
the
risk
clock.
It didn't
injury.
make
Run
any
the ball.
sense. It didn't
Yeah.
make
Why
any sense
take
to
a risk?
throw it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
and I don't. That's why I'm saying it. After the game was over, I text you guys and said, I needed a cigarette because I feel like I just got screwed out of an entire
An entire
NFC championship
Yeah.
game.
We all felt that way.
Yeah, and I think now I'm not a hardcore Eagles fan who says Shanahan has been exposed because
But I told you that before the game, didn't I?
yeah, but it's easy.
did.
Look, Brock
I
Purdy
told you
gets
that before the game.
but if Brock Purdy doesn't get injured on that one play, we're not really having this discussion, okay? Because
We
who's
might be having a discussion that Brock Purdy shit the bed and sucked.
anything.
I think
We
it was
don't know.
headed. I do
We
think
don't
it was headed in that.
No, and I made this
You know?
comment. I made this comment during when it right after it happened. I said it looks like the injury to Purdy, not only did it obviously take the 49ers completely off their game, like Shanahan had no idea what to do. You could tell
there was no plan.
And you could say that that's a result of maybe not forward thinking, and that's a coach's issue. You got to have a plan in place. Why didn't they have a third quarterback and all of that kind of stuff? But also, for a little bit of time there, it looked like it shocked the Eagles to the point where they didn't really know what to do.
Well,
because they're like, now what
they
are
had
we
to change their whole game.
Yeah, what are we going to do now? And whenever you have to change your game plan, no matter what's going on, you take a big risk. You take a big risk. But
all they really had to do was let the center it to Johnson, the quarterback. And then the game was over. I mean, all they had to do was kind of stay in their own lane.
Well, it was funny because at the end of the second half, I think it was maybe there was like a minute left or something, and San Fran had the ball, and I'm like, this is good. We got time for a turnover here. and then it happened.
Yeah.
But but the bottom line is that you could tell San Francisco's defense is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But they still, now granted, maybe if Purdy is playing, maybe, the time of possession is different, et cetera, et cetera. But the Eagles still did put 31 up on the number one run defense in the league.
Yeah, but they
ran all over them.
What they had 2 or 3 turnovers. That was the big difference.
Yeah,
I mean that's why they got they got the 31.
Yeah,
and their offense is pretty efficient. The Eagles' offense is pretty efficient.
Definitely.
But I mean, they couldn't stop McCaffrey.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and look,
he had his one nice run. It was an amazing run.
This is the way I would look at it right now, much to the chagrin of the Eagles fan in our midst. That game doesn't count. Look, the Eagles won. They won the game. They scored more points. They were the better team. They were probably overall the better team, even if Purdy stays healthy. But at the same time, look, if they'd have lost that game, right. So they're in the Super Bowl. So we'll move to the Super Bowl. But let's talk about the I feel bad for Brock Purdy too, because
I don't.
All right, that's you and him and
come on. He's a young kid. He might get back to a championship game in his career again, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, he's not that good.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of talk now.
This talk about him being the next Montana, I'm glad that's over.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about, is that where Tom Brady goes next year? Is that where Aaron Rodgers goes next year?
San Francisco,
that's garbage. They've got
plenty.
They've got 3 quarterbacks who they can choose from internally. They're not looking for an external idiot like Rodgers.
All right, there you go. Okay, so let's go. KC and KC and the Bengals. Another controversy, of course, at the end of the game.
Pretty bad.
I'll tell you what, the officiating in both of these games it left a lot to be desired.
Well, I told you that the refs in the Eagles game, they're the Super Bowl refs.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
Expect a lot of flags in the Super Bowl.
I think that's good for the Eagles, though.
Yeah, they know how to work the refs.
Right.
But I mean, they're not afraid to throw the flags. They're the officiating crew that had the most penalties called throughout the season.
I will say
and they did it again in the championship game. So I would expect not a lot of flow to the game.
I will say this, though. I honestly didn't think there were many penalties in the Eagles game that I disagreed with. I mean, they were pretty much on the mark. Yeah, they really were. I mean, they really were.
Well, they kind of missed the holding call on that.
I don't know. I think we've already identified that wasn't a real game. So
that's true. Let's
go to the AFC game.
So Kansas City and the Bengals, Kansas City, they break the curse. They win the game. Every game has a call or two that can change the outset. It was clearly a penalty at the end. That guy, Osai, he feels terrible.
Yeah.
I think the real story about this game is the fact that a Mahomes, who he clearly during the game, you could see that he wasn't as mobile. Okay. But even not being as mobile, he was accurate. They won the game. Yeah. They kicked the field goal. He kept his team in it. And Andy Reid, is going back to the Super Bowl. He's going to play his former team, the Eagles, who he got him to the brink, constantly, and he just couldn't get him over the hump.
Right.
And I think that's obviously the media is going to play that as a
sure.
huge story.
And the Kelsey versus Kelsey ball.
Well, yeah, and we've had brothers before, though,
Brothers
right?
No,
versus
first
brothers.
time ever
Is it first time ever,
First
brother
time
versus
ever.
brother?
on opposing team.
I think I
Okay.
could take my
Yeah.
brother in
Yeah.
the Super Bowl.
You think so?
Yeah.
We'll see what he
Yeah.
has to say here. But
Nah, he knows I can take him.
but I liked the fact that was a close game. I think that I was looking at it and saying, man, we're going to overtime. Until
Yeah.
that penalty.
Could have gone
Yeah.
either way.
They could have had. I think they could have had one more play, even if that wasn't. If he decides not to hit him and does the right thing, I think they have one more play to get 5 or 6 more yards. Then you kick a field goal.
Mhm.
They weren't going to kick a 60-yard field
No,
goal.
probably
No,
not.
I don't think
No.
they were going to chance
But
that.
I think you're right. They probably would have tried a 60-yard field goal with
Mhm.
whatever 2
the
seconds left,
punt,
and
the
they probably
punt,
would have
the
been
punt
over.
return was
Yeah.
a huge play.
Well, so did you see the penalty that they missed on that
I
on
did.
the punt
No,
So a guy definitely got clipped.
Did
A guy got blocked from
Yeah.
behind. This was like while the ball was still in air, so it was kind of like the ref wasn't really looking that
Yeah.
way, and it kind of happened. And then he ran up the side that he got
Yeah.
clipped on. Bengals fans are going crazy over it, which I
Yeah.
love. I just love that. And they did miss the call, in fairness
Yeah,
to Bengals
okay.
fans, but screw you, Bengals fans, because I don't really care. And but so they got a nice return from that. And even the series before, that intentional grounding penalty, that was an iffy call.
Yeah,
I mean, the running back was
that really
in the
was an
area.
iffy call.
The bad
I
call
mean,
was when they got the
he did
third
throw it
down
into the
over
ground.
again. When they got the third down over again.
Yeah.
When the ref from the middle of the field, no one near him, saying stop.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the Bengals were a beneficiary of, Mahomes being down, and he didn't have to throw the red flag and challenge that.
True. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, the officiating was pretty bad, but I don't think it was lopsided, but it is kind of sad that it was the outcome of game, a referee making a call.
Yeah.
But
Well, we've seen
it's
it
more.
happen.
It's
We've
more.
seen it happen.
It's to me that was more about the player's action than it was about the ref making the call.
It was. It was on
There
the
was
player.
there was no judgment call. Clearly, he had both feet out and he hit a star
It
quarterback.
was on the player. And to be honest, for all we know, he's running full steam. He probably doesn't even know he's 2 feet out of bounds.
Yeah, and well, that's
I mean-
the problem with those calls.
Yeah.
Is that they and the same thing with the roughing the passer calls and how
Mhm.
how light
Mhm.
the test for that is now, and
Mhm.
it's like but how do you manage that? It's like the old time rule where if the receiver was going up to get the catch and the defender pushed him out of bounds in the air, they would give him the catch.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
it's
right,
kind of
right.
like then they decided, well, that's
Well, I mean, as a
Yeah.
defensive person, you have to recognize this situation.
Right.
Like you have to know that he's running out of bounds at the 40,
Mhm.
and they're not going to be able to kick a field goal there. I don't have to run over there really
Mhm.
fast and make sure he goes out of bounds.
Right.
It was clear he was headed in that direction, and it was clear he had him cut off. So there's no reason to even touch him at that point.
right.
So
right.
I mean, so that's coaching. That a player has to inherently know that in their system while they're doing it. And if they don't, that's honestly, it's on coaching. It's not on the player.
Right.
The coaches have to instill that. Like, what's the situation here? What are you going to do if this happens? Like, if they're not coaching that into them, and you have a young player and he's not smart enough or hasn't been in that position before, maybe because he played junior college
Mhm.
and he's just trying to make himself in the NFL, he's going to overdo it. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, that game was better.
No, it was the
Yeah.
best game because the Bengals lost.
Well,
man.
right.
The
for you.
Bengals lost.
Right. So
I mean,
know,
they're still clearly better than the
and
Steelers, but
really, that was anybody's game. I mean, anybody could have won that game.
it was anybody.
I love the
you
fact that Joe Burrow lost the game. That made me happy.
Well, the Bengals didn't, ingratiate themselves to anybody by doing the whole Barrowhead thing.
Yeah,
That
true.
was really stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that was their
You know.
fans, though, wasn't it?
No,
Or
no,
it was a player.
It was
right?
Mike Hilton.
It was Mike
Yeah.
Hilton.
Our
Yeah,
buddy.
yeah.
Tomlin, Tomlin's
Tomlin
voice.
saying it's Burrowhead. Yeah.
All right. Well,
But-
we will table our Super Bowl predictions for next Monday.
Sure.
Because we got a week to go, and obviously there's some injuries. Mahomes is still not 100%. Jalen Hurts, although I think he's going to end up being just fine. And we can do a Super Bowl. We'll do a whole Super Bowl analysis. CD said he wanted to see the new OT rules in play. Yeah, it would have been fun. Who knows? I think it's going to be a tight game in the Super Bowl.
Maybe we'll get to see it in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
New overtime rules in the Super Bowl.
I think that's possible.
Maybe.
So before we move on here, I want to thank you for listening on American Busker, iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio has 150 million registered users, over 2,000 devices, and 260 platforms. And I also want to encourage you to listen to the Sports Porch. Our podcast drops every time we do a show. You can listen to it on the iHeartRadio app, the Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Please follow us and leave a review. And now we're going to move on to the Hockey Jesus, who also preaches on the iHeartRadio app, live on the podcast, or anywhere you get your podcasts after every Penguins game. It's going to be a few days because we got an all-star break here. So, I was talking to Steve. I'm sorry. I was talking to the savior, the hockey savior,
this guy,
before the show. And I said, Steve, Mr. Jesus, what do you think?
Jesus.
Are they just, too old? Is that what we're looking at here?
We are looking at an old Penguins team. It's true. They're still the team. The thing that made them different earlier in the season was they had better goaltending, and they had their complement of defensive guys.
Right.
So I think that made them a little bit different of a team to play against. And Zucker and Malkin in the first line and the second line are still playing very well. The problem is the third line with Teddy Bluger. The third line is just they've experimented with a few things. They've tried that lately. The experiment is bringing Bluger up from the fourth line, having him center the third line with Carter. The guy who's really aging out quickly is Jeff Carter. The guy has just hit a wall, and I think if he doesn't look different after the All-Star break, refreshed, gets his legs back, he's in trouble. Because they can't keep him out there on the third line. He's just not good. No, the Hershey Bears, screw the Hershey Bears. They're part of the Capitals system.
He knew you were going to do
that. We don't like the Washington Capitals.
That's why CD did that.
In this city.
That's why he did that.
Screw those Hershey Bears.
So
Roseberry.
Just take it easy, man.
So rather than break it down that way, let me just ask you this question, okay? Since we're at the midpoint of a little past it, but we're at the midpoint of this season. They signed a bunch of now I'm using the term lightly because we're talking about some Hall of Fame players here.
Yes,
but they signed a bunch of these old guys to 2-3 year contracts.
Yes,
that really
3 to 5 years.
They can't get out of them unless they say, okay, you can trade me.
Right.
The real reason they did it. There's a lot of hockey reasons, but obviously It's to keep the stands filled.
Keep them filled.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's what the fans want. They want to see
Right.
the big three. They want to see Letang. They want to see Gino. They want to see Sid. They get all the applause, when they're out there.
They're still all playing.
They're still all playing great.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that being said, the rest of this year, not much they can do, right? They don't have a lot to offer when it comes to a trade package to bring in maybe some better defensemen, maybe some guys that are secondary scorers. So it sounds like they're stuck.
Well, they could make a hockey trade for a bottom six guy. It would be a guy you wouldn't know, a guy who would be a banger, a guy who would, cause some ruckus on the third line, maybe create more space for Carter. Kapanen hasn't played lately. He's been injured. It seems like he plays better with Carter on the third line, so maybe that would help. Yeah. But it would be pretty much the same old. So that would be the only thing they could do from a trade standpoint. Lately, the thing everybody's talking about is what do they do about the goalie situation?
Right. That was next.
Right.
Yeah.
So DeSmith they signed to a 2-year contract, and Jari's contract's out next year.
And he gets injured way too much.
So this is his 4th injury, and that's too many times to get injured and not do something about it, right?
Right.
Normally, if you get injured, it's kind of like unfortunate, you tear something because you're trying too hard, and then you fix it and repair it, and then you prepare your body so that it doesn't happen again. Well, he's been injured 4 times, and to me, that's too much. So the question is, maybe he gets injured so badly they can put him on the IR and pick up a goal. Maybe
this all doesn't sound good to me. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this.
Well,
and saying
so the other thing you can say is when he comes back healthy. He doesn't get injured, and he plays lights out the rest of the season. Like, that's what they need. They need to have consistency in the goal position so that when they do score 5 or 6 goals, they're only giving up 2 or 3. That's how you win games. Like,
so is this to me smells like the beginning of the end of this current Penguins franchise as we know it.
So the problem, and you normally you would say that because your big stars are not performing.
Right.
They can fix the bottom 6. They just have to be able to do something about it. And they haven't wanted to do something about it. Like, why would you sign Carter to a 2-year contract? That makes no sense. He's a bottom 6 guy, right? That would have been a guy they could replace with somebody else.
Right.
And why sign Danton Heinen and Brock McGinn to 1 or 2 year contracts when you could go get somebody else? See, the problem is it's the same guys. So the problem is unless other people want some of those guys and you bring in new guys, you're stuck. But those are guys you can get rid of.
Right.
So it is possible that some of those guys go away, and it is possible that Jari gets healthy, and those things all work together in the last 30 games to be able to make a run at it. Because their first 2 lines are not the problem. Normally you lose things because you lose games badly because your first 2 lines just aren't going.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's not the Penguins' problem. So that's something to be optimistic about.
Okay. So when are we going to hear Hockey Jesus again?
I actually am going to do something later in the week about what I think, a little bit more in depth about what I think they can do, specifically targeting players who I think they should go after on the bottom 6.
Okay.
I haven't quite finished my analysis yet, so you're going to have to come back to the Sports Porch, theporcheslive.com, theporcheslive.com.
Theporcheslive.com. Yeah.
To get that analysis.
Right.
But it'll be up Thursday or Friday of this week.
Would you mind?
Oh, God, please, no.
I don't know how many times he does stuff like this, and you got to hold it closer to the mic, Schwaber. I'm not even sure we're going to hear that.
Oh, and by the way, the Hockey Jesus will give a shout out to the Bears toss. 67,309 teddy bears is probably worth mentioning.
Yes, yeah, it would be worth seeing. To be honest.
Oh, there's video. You can see it.
Okay,
It's pretty
okay.
impressive.
What is this?
So the Hershey Bears do a bear toss.
Okay.
I think around the holidays where
for Children's Hospital.
I think it's after the first goal that's scored. They throw the teddy bears out on.
Yeah, only in
field.
hockey.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if like 80,000 people at a football game all threw teddy bears on the field?
Well, they do the thing in Iowa where they turn around and wave.
Yeah.
Oh, Iowa.
All right, guys. Well, listen, man, we're looking forward to the Super Bowl. I don't think there's a whole lot we need to talk about anymore tonight.
Oh, we're not going to talk about the All-Star game? The All-Pro game?
The All-Pro game?
Yeah.
Why? Why would we do that?
Well, there's going to be some good flag football.
Yeah, right.
Everybody likes a good flag football game, Chris.
Yeah, sorry.
Especially coached by the Mannings.
Eli and Peyton are coaching it up.
I think they're going to warm up with the balloon toss.
Yeah.
They teased that in the commercial.
I just think that's
No?
ridiculous.
You think that's ridiculous?
Yeah.
You wouldn't fly to Vegas to watch him play flag football?
I wouldn't fly to Vegas at all.
Oh.
I was at Vegas once,
Did you fly there?
and that's the only. No, I drove through.
Well, that's why. You got to fly there. Flying in Vegas.
It's the only
is
time
not-
I'm ever going to Vegas in my life.
Mm.
Oh no, I
That's
lied.
not true.
I lied.
That's
I
not-
was in Vegas twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only 2 times.
You'll
I'm
go
going to
back.
Vegas.
If the guys want to go to Vegas,
You'll
he'll
go
go
back.
to Vegas.
Yeah.
Nah,
The
nah.
fact that you're alive, having been to Vegas twice, is a feat.
It's remarkable.
It is remarkable.
It is remarkable.
It's remarkable. And with that, we will see you guys next week. And thank you so much for listening to us. Catch the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you get the podcast. Catch Hockey Jesus there as well. And we'll see you guys next week.
We'll see you on the flippity.
Oh
On the flippity. Yeah.
What the hell? Who says that?
That's on The Office. Come on.
Is it
I'll
really?
see you on the flippity.
I'm not an office.
They also did that on. Did you ever see that show?